Good afternoon, everyone, to the Sandy and Bob show for November 5th, 2019. We have a very special guest today that's going to open the eyes of many people, and it's a worldwide program, and our special guest is Matt Landman, and I will introduce Matt in just a moment. But before I do, I'd like to remind all our listeners that it's very important that you connect with the Real Guides from the All Is, and you do that by singing New You, and you can sing it like New You, and you need to do that for 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes at night every day, and ask the Real Guides to show you what's real. They will show you everything that Matt is talking about today is all true, and when you connect, you have the opportunity to step up and share this information with other people, and it will change your life so wonderfully to the positive that I would say it would knock your socks off. Now, to introduce Matt Landman, I will have my wife Sandy read a little bit background for Matt, and we'll start the show with that. Matt, here's my wife Sandy.
Hi, everyone. Our guest today, is, my husband Bob said, is Matt Landman, who grew up on the East Coast and relocated to California back in 2003, where he worked in finance and studied film at the California State University of Humboldt and earned a master's degree in business administration with a focus in strategic sustainability in 2010. After various careers in business and finance, Matt left the corporate world to be an organic farmer, where he inadvertently began his career as an activist. Working outdoors and dependent upon the elements, Matt witnessed weather engineering in Northern California as the region suffered from a historic and catastrophic drought. The realization that the weather was being manipulated via atmospheric aerosol dispersal changed Matt's life forever, as he inevitably decided to devote his existence to exposing the hidden agenda. He is the director of the film Frankenskies, which is a film about the solar engineering governance regime, and it can be viewed at frankenskiesthemovie.com and is also available on YouTube. He is also the founder of Actual Activist at actualactivist.com. He joins us here today to discuss what is happening in our skies, what it means, the relationship of geoengineering in the California fires, and the focus of his new film, which is in the making, as well as solutions to the personal health and spiritual challenges we face in a world subject to weather engineering as a covert operation, and how we can most effectively educate others about a world event, that of geoengineering and its multifaceted layers, which has been in various stages of operations for decades, yet which the mainstream media has censored from public awareness. I'll hand it over to Matt now.
Welcome, Matt.
Hi, Robin.
To the show.
Hello. Hey, thanks so much. Great introduction. I really appreciate you having me on.
Well, I don't know where to start. You've done such a fantastic job. We watched your movie, and I have to say that there is nothing so convincing, and the research you did of the background of chemtrails and everything that they've done in the skies. What you've done is just awesome. I mean, it's beyond compare, and I thank you very much for stepping up and sharing that with everybody. So I don't know where to start. Where would you like to start sharing your information?
Well, usually whenever I get going on this, I try to firstly explain to people that I'm just a normal guy. I'm not a out there conspiracy-oriented type person. I didn't come from money or anything. I didn't have the luxury of choosing this because I was financially stable or anything like that. I'm from Virginia, like your intro said, and I just happened to see something, and then it was reinforced by a friend actually just telling me to look up the word chemtrail. I didn't really realize what I was witnessing. I was just there and witnessing, and what I witnessed was weather modification. I was working on a farm in Northern California. Like you said in the intro, I got a master's in business. I worked in finance. I was a finance analyst. I worked in so many different jobs, so many different careers, all of them based in money, of course, and greed and all these things. And being grounded and working on a farm, I thought I could, connect with different elements that I had never before been exposed to, and I did exactly that. My first day on an organic farm, I learned how disconnected that I really was, disconnected from the earth, from the sky, from all of the elements, and even the process of the seed. We're not told about the abundance and the power of life and the seed, and even that potatoes grow potatoes. And I like to say this a lot because I was 33 years old. I had graduated top of my class with a master's in business. I had a bachelor's of science in marketing management. I had gone to what they claim to be the best public education school system in the country, in Fairfax County public schools. Once I first learned that literally potatoes grew potatoes by working on a potato farm, I realized that I had such a disconnect to so much that I never even knew that potatoes under my sink or in my closet, in my food pantry, that they were actually just trying to grow, and had I planted them in the ground that they would grow potatoes. Like, there's so much. There was a disconnect that I learned very recently about cilantro. I actually grew a garden and I had cilantro, and the cilantro went to seed. It produced seeds, and the seeds were actually coriander, a seed that I'd used to cook and I'd been exposed to for decades, and I never knew that coriander and cilantro were so intimately connected. I mean, the cilantro, the coriander seed actually grows cilantro. So as a farmer, I learned how disconnected that I was, and then we were in the midst of a catastrophic 4-year drought, and on the edge of this massive storm system where we were expecting finally a reprieve from the drought, from this the region was stricken with drought, and little did I know that it was because of the weather engineering, weather modification agenda, this ongoing agenda that hardly anybody knows about. Well, what I witnessed was in this very rural area where there's very sparse air traffic, on the edge of this massive storm, all of a sudden we had a statistical anomaly. A bunch of airplanes showed up, about 20, and they grid the sky with these persistent lines coming out of the back of the plane. And they were only there on the edge of this storm. They came and they left, and the uptick in air traffic never revealed itself until maybe another storm came, and I started to watch this pattern and come to find out after I did the research and learned, because these storms came and didn't drop any rain. That was the big aha moment for me. So come to find out, if you spray aluminum on incoming storms, you can dissipate the moisture, and it's the opposite of cloud seeding. You can make it not rain. There's all this talk of California fires and this drought, and people know that we can make it rain on ski resorts and seed clouds, and there's been cloud seeding all the way back to the 1920s in San Diego, when a professor by the name of Hatfield, he actually flooded San Diego with his first rain manipulation, rain-making experiment in the town. The city of San Diego, even though they'd hired him to make it rain, they sued him because he actually burst the dams. He made it rain so hard. So the ability to control the weather has been honed in on and perfected since as early as the 1920s and even before then. So the technology is there, but people just don't realize that we can use it to our advantage to alleviate drought and all these other things, because the information is controlled. So I just like to try to convey to people that I'm a normal guy that just happened to wake up to the truth, and in that light, I shifted my journey completely. Yes?
Well, I just want to add to what you just said. In the 1990s, my brother Mike went down to Mexico to visit some friends down there, not too far from Mexico City. They lived out in the country on a big farm, And as he was driving down the back roads, there were signs up, billboards up all over the place, said, "We will, for $5 an acre, we will give you 1 inch of rain on your crops." And it was a Russian company advertising. So if you had and this was in the 90s, so if you had 5,000, let's say you had 1,000 acres, for $5,000 you could get 1 inch of rain on your crop, thanks to the Russian technologies. They actually advertise.
I don't doubt it. There's actually advertisements that if you want to, for instance, ensure that your wedding day does not get rain, if you have the money, you can ensure that you have a sunny wedding outdoors. As long as you have enough money, you can buy sunshine. But only if you have enough money. I looked it up recently. It's about $250,000 for 1 day of sunshine. So if you've got that kind of money, you can do just about anything. And if you can control the weather, you can essentially control the world. And that's what my film really displays. I'm screening the film, my film, Frankenstein, is upcoming in the town that I live. And a local student, climate science student, told me that they were going to come watch the movie and that they were going to fact check everything in my film. And I thought about it. There's nothing to fact check. This is historical military stock footage, just put in order, in chronological order, showing the timeline, the evolution of the technology to get us to where we're at. There's no way you can watch this film and not embrace the obvious truth that the weather can be controlled, and it likely is. It likely is. So that's really the revelation I want to bring to people is the truth is completely hidden, especially this agenda to control the weather, to control the skies, to geoengineer the skies, to prevent us from getting our light source, our sunlight. I mean, this is the biggest thing we could ever deal with in our lifetime, in my opinion.
You know, speaking of, you know, you talk a lot about, in your movie, you show all the spraying and stuff, and around 1992, a friend of mine in the northern Illinois area introduced me to Tom Bearden. Tom Bearden is kind of known for his advanced scientific technologies, and she showed me a video that Tom Bearden had done, and at one point in his life he was sent over to Russia to study the scalar technology that the Russians were using to alter the weather, and they used scalar technology. And for anybody that doesn't know anything about scalar technology, you need two antennas, or two or more antennas, and you transmit a signal on a certain frequency, and then you have another antenna. You send a transmission where the two signals cross. What the Russians were doing is they were sucking the energy out of the atmosphere, and they could take an area that was, let's say the outside temperature was 90 degrees. Within seconds, they could drop the atmospheric temperature down to below 0 Fahrenheit, and any moisture in the air would condensate immediately into rain. And he made a video of it that I watched, you know, and that was around 1992. So it's just absolutely fabulous what they can do to affect weather. And actually, not too long after that, I'll share this story. There was a United Airlines captain who took off from Los Angeles, and he was an old-timer, and this was, I'm not sure if this was in what year this was, but he took off from Los Angeles with a full load of passengers in a 747, and as he was climbing up to altitude, about 35,000 feet, on his way to Hawaii, he was about 200 miles southwest of Los Angeles when he saw what he thought was an atomic bomb going off. All of a sudden, the sky just a massive explosion, just like an atomic bomb balloons across the sky and has a mushroom cloud. It had exactly the same appearance as an atomic bomb going off, and he was trained as a military pilot. He was trained when he saw one of those was to take the aircraft, do an immediate 180, and dive the aircraft at maximum speed to save the aircraft from the impact of the explosion. And he did that, and he set off all the oxygen masks in the airplane, and he had to go back to LAX and land, and they had to regroup and schedule another flight to Hawaii. Well, anyway, it turns out that what's interesting is when they use these scalar weapons, when they suck all the energy out of one part of the sky and make the temperature drop, they have a lot of stored energy, and they have to get rid of that stored energy. And so what they will do is they will use the technology to dump. They usually take all the heat that they took out of the atmosphere, and they dump it out in the ocean, usually the Pacific Ocean where you won't see it. And that's what they did at the time of this flight. They put all that heat energy out into the ocean, and that's what made it look like an explosion, an atomic bomb going off. So that finally came out, and it was in all the papers in Los Angeles of the time. So it's really, really interesting. All these things, there's bits and pieces of it everywhere if people would just pay attention. All right, go ahead, Matt. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Oh no, and that's a great story. The global agenda to convince the world that climate change and global warming is heating the planet. Now, not only is the heating of the planet completely controversial, like the points on the graph to say, oh, look, the planet is heating, those points have been either falsified or fabricated, or heat waves have actually been created through means like this scalar technology and NEXRAD and HARP and ionospheric heaters. It's all about the same thing, the use of frequencies to have intersecting frequency waves to heat or cool and manipulate the atmosphere. And like you said, you end up with this heating. The agenda at hand through this globalist solar geoengineering governance regime, the self-proclaimed regime of globalist elitists, they claim that they have exclusive rights to dimming our sun, as they point to us as the reason for this supposed heating. Well, there's so many scientists that say there's no heating going on at all. But if there is any heating, it's not because of our carbon. It's not because we exhale carbon. It's not because our cars emit carbon, you know? And no one will ever really point the finger and say, well, you exhale carbon, human beings exhale it. But the guilt trip is so deep that we know deep down inside, and that's why every person feels so bad about this, because of the manipulation through the media.